into this now. You talk about chasing greatness. You're playing sports growing up all throughout high school. You start seeing yourself in the boxing gym, just on the fitness side when you're 18, and then you come across a major hurdle. You're learning to protect yourself. You're becoming abused by a partner. Like, how did you get in that situation, and how did you deal with that situation?
I think the fear of failure stops a lot of people from stepping into what their purpose probably could be. And I know people, I've read stories of people that literally went their entire life and they're like, wow, like, I just don't think I was willing to take a risk. And I just think that, and this is my mantra, I think the biggest thing is that fighting's taught me is that.
Welcome to the Maestre Mentality podcast, where I get to interview some of the dopest individuals that I've met through this amazing journey of life. Individuals with the most amazing stories and plenty of lessons to share. Every single person, though, we have one thing in common that has brought us together. We all have a love for boxing. But it's always been bigger than boxing. On that note, let's get into these stories.
I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the...
If there's one word to describe today's guest, it would definitely be resilient. The relationship you build in a fighter and coach dynamic is definitely one of a kind. I had the honor to start working with this fighter last year. We would support each other on social media from afar and finally locked in for a training session and have been consistent ever since. I say resilient because she messaged me one day before a session and said, "Sorry, coach, I can't make it to training tomorrow. I just had a stroke." She ended up having surgery shortly after and was back in the studio working with me weeks after that. Incredible. Another word to describe her, versatile. A producer and coach for Fight Camp, a tech company that emphasizes boxing content, at-home training products, and the passion to bring authentic boxing training to the masses for people at home. She's also a content creator herself, a creator who goes above and beyond on sharing and documenting her journey in an inspirational and motivational light. A true honor to kick off the first interview for 2023. Welcome to Maestre Mentality, Jess Evans.
Jeez, I don't even know how to follow that. That was so lovely. Thank you. You're a writer. You should write a book.
You know, it's definitely in my bucket list things to do. I've actually, since I moved to New York years and years ago, and I started building an audience. I started like jotting down like notes in my iPhone for a potential book down the line. One of these days.
It doesn't surprise me though. Your story, it's like you've lived 3 different lives. So
I feel like I feel like I've lived I could go into so many stories, which I'm gonna branch off into, other versions of these episodes. So I do interviews with everyone sharing their stories, but now I want to, talk to the audience directly and share things about my story. And so that'll be another addition to Maestre Mentality, and hopefully it keeps growing and growing. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad we were able to link up.
Yeah, I mean, for the audience, we've been trying to get together and do this. Maybe this is like the 3rd or 4th try. I mean, leading up to it, there's so much stuff. And then the holidays hit. Literally, right now, it's about 7 p.m. I landed at close to 5 p.m. John Wayne. I was supposed to land yesterday from a trip, but we got held up because of delays. And everyone, do not fly United Airlines. Like, never again will I fly United Airlines. Last night I was sprinting, and I get competitive. So I had a layover in Denver from Jackson Hole. So I flew Jackson Hole to Denver, and then we had literally like 20 minutes to get to the other gate, but we landed 15 minutes late. So I sprint. There's 20 of us from the plane sprinting, and I was like to Annie, I was like, stand behind. I'm going to catch up to everyone and be the first there, because I was so competitive. I was full blown sweating when I got to that. But we got there. The plane was still there, but they wouldn't let us through. So we ended up just getting a room for the night, and then we had like 4 or 5 delays today. It was a shit storm. But enough about my drama. I mean,
you still made it happen though. We're still here.
Yeah, we're here.
Chatting.
We're here, and it's going to be a great episode. I mean, you have such a dope story that you've been sharing with me through our training and everything. We could take it in so many directions, but I always like letting people understand, the foundation, the fundamentals of who you are and what you've been through. I mean, talk to us, like, where'd you grow up? How'd you get into boxing? What was growing up like? Let's start there.
Okay, well, my name is Jessica Evans. That is my married name, though, because I am married. And I am originally from Kansas City, Missouri, but small town Kansas City, Missouri. So, I mean, I think I grew up in a town of like 4,500 people. Some people, I mean, maybe for you, because you're from like cities, people are like, okay, like, whoa, you're from the country. But it was suburbia. Can I just be fair with that? So I grew up in suburbia. I grew up playing sports my entire life. I've pretty much played, name a sport, and I've probably competed in it. My parents put us in basketball from its age 4 until like who knows when. I used to compete in competitive swimming from 7 until like 21. I dabbled in softball, gymnastics. I was an all-state cross-country runner. I was an all-district track runner. And then after high school, I started going to a boxing gym, just like a fitness boxing gym, and like hitting the bag and everything. And it was around this time that I had kind of gotten into a pretty toxic relationship when I was 18. And I was put in a really vulnerable situation in that relationship, like an abusive situation, which then led me down the path to learn how to defend myself. And it was from that moment that I was like, when I started going to a proper boxing gym, I think I was like around 21 at this time. I just fell in love with it. And it kind of feels like the rest has been history because it's been about 10 years since that all started.
Wow. I mean, you've done so painting the picture, you played all sports growing up. So it was super fun for you. You were super active growing up. What was your favorite out of everything? Because I've seen you shoot a basketball on Instagram. I mean, you have a pretty decent shot. I used to play, so yeah. No,
okay,
I'm like, yo,
okay. Yeah, you go 1-on-1. Let's go. But I always enjoyed playing basketball because it was a school sport. So it didn't like take me out of like getting to do things with people like from school and then compete against other schools. And it also was like less pressure. Whereas like swimming, which was probably my best sport, I was on an all-round swim team. It's not like a school swim team. So it was like it's kind of like AAU basketball, like the very competitive teams the organizations outside of like high school. It was like that. It was like the AAU version of swim team. And I just think that I would just make myself so nervous. That would probably, even though it was my best, I would probably say that I liked basketball the most. And who likes to run for fun? I mean, I'm good at it, but I don't like it. I mean,
what did you what did you run in high school? Because I did track and field in high school too. Or what events did you do?
Well, cross country is always a 5K, but in track, the 4x8, the 1 mile, and the 2 mile in one meet, right?
Yeah, why?
Because they knew that I was a good long distance runner. And then also I dabbled a little bit, this is random, in pole vaulting and hurdling.
And hurdling is crazy. I'm scared to do that.
I'm so
scared
hard
to do hurdling.
Yeah, my middle sister, she was a 400-meter hurdler for college. She was really good. I mean, if you want to talk about a tough race, the 400-meter hurdle.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So were you always athletic, or were you more so athletic, kind of on the lazy side, or athletic and you had a good work ethic through playing all these sports?
My entire family is athletic. My mom was a college ball player. My dad's like 5'10", but he could dunk back in the day. Like all of us were very athletic. My younger brother, he went to college for track. My middle sister went to college for track. So all of us are like really athletic, but I would definitely say that I also had a lot of drive. I'm extremely competitive. I want to
see that.
win. But not even just that. I want to be getting better. I want to do better. I want to be growing in whatever sport that it is that I was doing, or getting stronger. So I would say that I'm a mix of both.
What athletes did you look up to growing up? Like as you're playing all these sports?
That's a really good question.
Like first one that pops up in your head that inspired you and motivated you.
I mean, Mike Tyson, Michael
Of
Jordan,
course.
like the
Yeah.
legends, like the people with like extreme work ethic
Hmm.
where they would just do whatever they could to be great. And I guess I wasn't necessarily, I mean, obviously I wasn't trying to like go to college or be a pro in any of these things, but I always like had that kind of like determination and that drive to be great at whatever it is I did or be excellent. So I
Hmm.
really looked up to them. Serena Williams and the Williams sisters even more after I watched their movie about
I heard that was a
their
really good movie. I got to watch
it's
that.
so good. Their journey and their
Yeah.
dad and just their whole story. It was just really
Yeah.
inspirational.
So I asked you about the athlete. I asked you that in the back of my mind. I kind of knew who you would say because when you were talking about you're really competitive, I mean, as kids, I remember like I was obsessed with Michael Jordan and then became
Same.
obsessed with Kobe Bryant. Kobe more so on the work ethic wise, but MJ more so on the competitive side of it because I knew with him he hated losing down to like a game
Hmm.
of quarters. Like if you watch The Last Dance and everything, he talks about like how did he even like losing a game of quarters in the back to the people working at the at the stadium. Like he doesn't like losing at pool or golf. He became a bad gambler. Like I could relate to that too. I
Yeah,
watching him, I became extremely competitive growing up and
same.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you had that belief. We had that belief in our heads, in our minds, in our hearts that like we could do anything we want to as long as we put the work towards it. I mean, we could accomplish anything we want and call it naive, call it, detached from reality. But like I had that belief that I could do whatever the F I wanted. And if I put the work towards it, I could be that person.
I think that's why you and I get along so well is because like maybe to some people they're like scared by that or intimidated by that. They're like, what do you mean you feel
Mm-hmm.
like you can do anything? Because yes, from a very young age, I don't even know how old. I had to be in like not even teens. I knew that I was going to do something big with my life. Now, obviously, like big can be subjective, right? But big in my
Mm-hmm.
eyes, something bigger
Yale.
than where it was I grew up, something bigger than Missouri. I was gonna move away. I was gonna see what was out there, and I was going to make sure I made whatever my dreams were a reality. But I have always had that belief, and it's interesting because I'm actually curious, and I'm going to pose a question back to you. Do you think that's nature or nurture?
I think it's a mix of both, and
Yeah.
how you're kind of nurtured helps you deal with like the nature around you almost, and because you've seen things, you've seen kids, they've been treated the same way, but one goes one way, the other goes the other way.
True.
It's so different, right? So I think
Hmm.
again subjective, and I love that you pointed that out because so many people and including myself will get caught up in chasing greatness but comparing my greatness to somebody else's greatness. No, like doing something great in our eyes, in our lane, and in the things we
Yeah.
want to do. And it goes to show is like we're creating greatness in our own lanes, in our own space, and pivoting and creating new things. There's and we'll get into that later in the conversation, but the things we're doing in the content creating space, for example, it
Hmm.
hasn't really been done, and we're doing things differently. And again, with our own touch behind it. So anyone listening out there who is chasing that
Yeah.
greatness, like do things that are great in your eyes versus trying to do
Yes.
them into others. Like that was a great point you made right there.
Hmm.
But segue, so let's lean into this now. You talk about chasing greatness. You're playing sports growing up all throughout high school. You start seeing yourself in the boxing gym, just on the fitness side when you're 18, and then you come across a major hurdle. You're
Yeah.
learning to protect yourself. You're becoming abused by a partner. Like, how did you get in that situation, and how did you deal with that situation?
Well, I know exactly how I got into that situation because I've had obviously plenty of time to really think about, in hindsight, that's our best teacher, right? And obviously, as I've matured and I've grown up and been in more relationships and so on, what I realized is that I never dated in high school. I never dated in middle school. I had seen a lot of really unfortunate relationships with like friends or family that I was just like, I just don't desire this. I know I'm not going to be that high school sweetheart person because I wanted to move away, remember? So
Mm-hmm.
I never dated anyone. But come 18, I moved out, I'm in college, I'm doing all these things, but I was very naive to manipulative people and what they looked like because once again, I don't have any dating experience. And I just think that I so badly wanted freedom from control or like freedom from, like just leaving the nest and just experiencing
Mm-hmm.
and doing whatever it is that you want on your own. I walked myself right into a really bad situation. And I wouldn't take it back. And I've said this before, I don't condone or justify abuse ever, or that's a verbal abuse, physical abuse, in whatever shape or form. However, had I not gone through that situation, I wouldn't have evolved or realized the things that I did that set me down the path that I chose. So I think that everyone comes to a fork in the road moment in their life. And you literally have the ability to choose this way or this way. And both ways are completely different. And I just think that it was in that moment that I didn't want to go down the self-destructive route of staying in that. It was easier just to stay in that because I thought I loved him. And I was very naive and I was very inexperienced. But I just knew, I was like, if this is going to be my life, then what am I doing? I had that moment. And I also knew that I deserved more than that. And that's my encouragement for anyone in relationships, especially women, especially if you're in an abusive situation. You have to be able to dig deep and ask yourself, like, hey, do I really deserve this? What will my life look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? What if you bring kids into the picture? It can't just be
Mm.
about you. It has to be about the long term. So after I had this realization and a lot of very trivial moments in that relationship, I finally just decided to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the best decision that I ever made because if I was still in that today, it would be even worse than that one moment that I experienced in that relationship.
Yeah. Did you come? Was there a point in that relationship where it was getting super abusive, and maybe you dealt with it, you let it slide, or you moved on from it? Another day comes and passes, and you realize the more you do this, the deeper you're going to fall into this hole. The deeper you're going to get into this relationship, the harder it's going to be to get out of it. Because you talk about that, you say you thought about the future, and I can only imagine. Like I've never been in this situation or experienced this situation, but the more you just deal with it,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it gets to settle for that.
Mm-hmm.
Abuse, well, any kind of abuse.
You know, that had only happened one time, but I knew that if it could happen once, it could happen again. And I
Mm,
think that that is what scared me. And even after it had happened, I was like, you know what? I'm really resentful towards this person. It's like I'm in a
mm-hmm,
relationship, but I can't stand the person. I don't know why I chose that. It's almost as if like I couldn't detach myself from him. But that's what that's what abusers do. That's what manipulators do. They get you so deep in a hole that you have no self-worth. You have no friends. I barely talk to friends. I barely talk to my family. I'm a very close person to my family. I am very close to my family. I was in the deepest, like darkest, like hole that I've ever been in my life. And if you know me, like I'm a very like pretty bubbly person, pretty
mm-hmm.
optimistic.
Yeah,
I didn't know who I was.
yeah.
And I had given him that power to allow me to believe that I was nothing. So I think that there was a lot of resentment for a couple of months. And then I think there was like one situation that happened where like a switch just, and I know this is like a really sad story, but I actually remember going to my sister's work. She was working at a bar in Kansas. I was living in Kansas with my boyfriend, and I sat down at the bar in the morning, like 11 a.m., through her entire shift. I cried at the bar the entire shift. And I said, I need you to go with me to break up with him and make sure I leave. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. So I waited with her entire shift at the bar. And this man, this is a really cool part. I've actually never told this before. This man sitting at the bar. So I grew up a Christian. I wasn't really a Christian at this time. But this man sitting next to me at the bar, like so random, like he's day drinking. He gives me this little coin, and it's the scripture about a mustard seed. That if you have faith as like as small as a mustard seed, then like you can get through anything pretty much. And I still have that coin to this day, which I think is really incredible. Cool. It was so random and it was perfect timing. And of course, at the moment, I'm just thinking like, I'm just like in like the darkest despair. But like when I think about that in hindsight, I know that was like, God was helping me. And I needed that because like I said, I could have taken a completely different choice of a path for my life and I wouldn't be where I am today.
And again, everyone's situation is different when they're dealing with those relationships and, you know, that shitty side of it. And you just have to keep looking towards that future and realizing like, is this the life for me? And there's more out there. And it seems like even from the start, you know, you always thought about your future and wanting to leave Kansas City and the small suburbs and go and do more. So looking towards the future in that sense, that's incredible. And look, like when you related to the mustard seed guy, giving that to you, it branched into this whole like, okay, well, I want to learn how to fight to properly defend myself because I'm not going to let that happen to me ever again. And now fighting and martial arts and boxing and all that is such a huge part of your identity now. Like who would have thought at that moment you decided to leave, it'd be this?
I would have absolutely no idea. And I think that is why like faith is so amazing and also just life. I think that anytime that you can take really, really painful moments in your life and turn them into passions, you win. And I think that's like for anyone's story. And I just, I knew it was a painful thing that had happened to me, but I was able to take that painful situation and regain the power in the situation and then help other people who have maybe been through similar things.
Yeah. And at that moment, you may have been thinking like, why is this happening to me? And ultimately it's happening for me to shape me into who I am today. You know, we all go through and all the chapter, like, you know, we talked about in the beginning, staying in our lanes and understanding like greatness in our eyes and us will go through our own pains and our own journeys and our own highs and lows and chapters to it. It's like hard to compare, but at the same time, we could compare and relate and hopefully inspire others to step out of a relationship like that. I mean, look at 100%. You're what an amazing story to share. So you went from learning to box to defend yourself or to fight, and then you actually competed, and from there, right? How'd you get into that?
Well, so I did originally go into it. I went away to college after the breakup, and when I came back, I was like, you know what? I'm going to show this person. That was my mentality, really. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I can do this. And I linked up with a boxing coach in Kansas City that's very well known. His name is Melvin Wesley. He's amazing. Like an awesome pound for pound fighter in his day. And I was like, you know, I want to learn this. And I was all in. I'm a very extreme person. I go from 0 to 100. I'm all in. I'm 100%. I was there.
The competitor in you.
The competitor in me. I'm just like, I'm not going to do this halfway. I'm going to do this 100%. And I started training in like November or December of 2011. And then I competed in the World's Ringside Tournament in the summer of 2012.
Wow.
I was like, I mean, and you understand what that's like.
That's in Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big tournament.
And I took second. Tournament.
Good for you.
It was amazing. And I was like, wow. They kept encouraging me after about like 3 months. They're like, you know what? You're really good. You picked this up fast. Would you like to compete? And I never went into it with the intention of competing, but I was like, you know what? If they have faith in me faith is small as a mustard seed, and I believe in myself as well. Let's do this. So I told my family.
You'll have to send not stock footage. You have to send footage of you competing in that, so I could put it on the podcast and the highlights. And that's incredible. Before you move on, did you fight leading up to the tournament, or was your first fight in the tournament?
My first fight was in the tournament.
So painting a picture for the audience, this is like a very, very like Golden Gloves, New York. You know, you have your nationals. Ringside is there too. Like, these are huge tournaments within, you know, the top tier elite fighters that end up becoming professional world champions later down the line. You started training November, and then the tournament was 6 months later.
Yeah. So pretty much, I had trained for a little over half a year.
And you took second place.
I took second place. Yeah. And the girl that beat me, not that I'm a little bitter, but she had a bye. So that's so frustrating in tournament style. You get it. Like, it is what it is. Sure. It's the luck of the draw, but still, like, every bit of time and ounce and energy you can save matters in these tournaments. You're fighting and weighing in every single day. I fought 3 days in a row, and then I did.
Oh my gosh!
I lost in the finals. Yeah, first time ever fighting. It was wild.
That's incredible, though. I mean, that's that MJ mentality right there. That competitiveness. Like, yo, fuck it. Like, in 6 months, I could compete with people that have been doing it for 6 years. Like, 100%. I could do it.
Yeah,
that's that mindset.
Yeah, the girl that I fought already had 6 fights, because you know how, like, it's it's a gap. There's like 0 fights to 7, and then 7 to 15, and so on. So the person I competed with definitely had more experience, but I took a lot away from that. And then it was after that tournament that I had a coach approach me and be like, you know what? You're really good. If I could just have a couple months with you, you'd be a sick kickboxer. And then this is so crazy, Jeremiah. And then I literally, in the second half of that year, fought kickboxing 2 times and won both times.
Good for you. Wow. What do you prefer versus the 2?
That's hard.
Really?
I like different things about both of them, and I like competing in both of them for different reasons. I like kickboxing because you get to utilize more of your body. And, you know, I'm a short person, so it's really nice to be able to, like, use that to my advantage. But I like boxing because I like the pace, and it really it's chess. I mean, so is kickboxing, but it's different. But boxing is it's about the small details. So I like both. I can't really say one over the other.
I'm soft. So I did a few MMA fights, a couple kickboxing smokers, and a handful of boxing fights, and jiu-jitsu matches as well. And kickboxing was the one I liked the least because I am soft. I was kicking the shit out of this guy all night, and then my leg was hurting so bad. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm inflicting pain onto myself. I just never got past that, like, building up the strength in my shins, and I have no desire to ever do that. So I commend you for that. Good for you.
It is painful, and especially because I fought Muay Thai, so I fought full Thai rules so we didn't even get there yet, but I moved to Australia the following January. And in Australia, their amateur Muay Thai fights are pretty much like professional fights here. No shin guards, no headgear.
No shin. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's a pro fight, practically. And you're wearing 8-ounce gloves, 6-ounce gloves. And I mean, you can feel your knuckles attached to your opponent through your glove. That's how small these gloves are. So it is very, very painful, and you get bruised a lot, and you are more susceptible to a wider variety of injuries. But there's something just really thrilling about kickboxing.
Yeah, there's something really thrilling about risking your body and getting extremely injured, right? Which is funny because I think we started competing around the same time. But I did amateur MMA here, and, UFC was blowing up, MMA was blowing up. the amateur scene wasn't as regulated or organized as it is now. So when I fought amateur MMA, the only difference from the amateur MMA fight, I fought in California, so it was camo MMA, California like athletic mixed martial arts organization or whatever. The only difference was we wore rash guards, 6-ounce gloves, and that was it. And the rounds were a little shorter. And then I compared it to pro MMA. I'm like, yo, like they're wearing 4-ounce gloves, and that's the only difference. Like this is you could knee, but you just couldn't knee to the head in amateur MMA. That was the only difference.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
could you elbow?
It was pretty crazy. You could elbow, and then I was like, "F this!" Like, why am I doing? I'm not even getting paid for this. Like,
exactly.
This is crazy.
And that really is the difference. But can I say this when it comes to fighting sports? I actually think it's crazy that people can just turn professional in fighting without any type of regulation. You can't walk into the NBA just because. Do you know what I mean? You can't walk into the NFL, but you can walk into a pro fight, a pro boxing match, a pro kickboxing with no experience, literally no experience. It's just like, I'm pro. And that's okay. And that's acceptable. That's crazy to me.
It's so corrupt. And again, like you can like really spin it your way. And I got respect for like what Jake Paul and all the influencers are doing and getting more eyes on the sport. But it goes to show like any of them could call themselves professional fighters. And how crazy
and fight top tier fighters that maybe someone who's been dedicating their whole life will never fight.
And get eyes on them like no one else. Like say like an influencer, they fight on one of these influencer cards under professional rules. They're considered a professional fighter. There's amateurs out there with 300 plus fights that may never could call themselves that or will never be known by anyone. Like that's like how corrupt the combat sports can be.
Agree. And I was talking to a coworker the other day, a lot of the amateur boxers are better than a lot of pros. Like the amateurs, because the amateurs are the ones that go to the Olympics. So it's such a strange system of like how things are regulated and what you can do. But that's just like a completely different subject. I just thought it was interesting how you can just.
It was interesting.
Like you said, like your MMA wasn't regulated really. And it's true. So you can just like one day wake up and be like, you know what? I want to be a pro fighter, and then you can just go be it, which I think is awesome, but still there should be like levels to this.
Here's a funny story. One of the first amateur MMA shows I went to, and literally it was my training partner was making his debut. He literally fought in like a private country club property in front of like all these rich country club people. And he was fighting another guy from another gym. And like the country club people were like betting on him and stuff. It was like, this cannot be legitimate. Like what the hell is going on here? It's like human cockfighting almost. They're just throwing bets on us and shit.
It feels like modern day gladiators.
Yeah, for sure.
Like gladiators, how they would fight and people would just like chant and throw money and stuff. It's really interesting.
And last thing I want to say about the amateur versus professional boxing, and I hope more amateurs down the line, and this gets clipped a little bit, more amateurs down the line get more recognition for what they're doing. Because even, and you've trained with Joanne, he was a very decorated amateur boxer, very decorated professional boxer, and he personally told me amateur boxing was way more difficult. High-level amateur boxing was way more difficult for him than the high-level professional boxing. Because in the amateur boxing, literally, like, you can't shape your record and have a good promoter and manager and outwork the system. Like, you're literally fighting top-tier competition. Like you fought 3 days in a row. That's insane.
Yeah, as an amateur, like, you just have to take what's given to you. It's like you said, you don't get to kind of like, oh, I won't take that, or oh, I will. You take the fight that you can get. And also some amateurs are fighting literally every weekend. So their experience, you and I both know what really helps you as a fighter is getting in the ring. You have to have the experience helps. It doesn't mean you can't do it without experience, but ring experience does help. And ring rust is a real thing. If you haven't fought in a while and you get in there, you have to kind of loosen up and shake it off. So I think I've trained with a lot of incredible amateurs.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a double-edged sword. Like
it is, yeah.
100, you could have 100 plus fights as an amateur, but then like and then go pro, and then you had 100 plus fights, but you didn't get paid $1. You took all that brain trauma for that experience. Was it worth it at the time? So it all depends on what your goals and what you want to get out of it is.
For sure. And a lot of the people that I have trained with that have over like 100 AMI fights, I've trained with quite a few. It was all because they were wanting to go to the Olympics. So that's understandable. Like the top of the top is at on the Olympic team. So you want to be prepared because you're fighting against, like Europeans and Eastern Europeans, really, really great boxers as well that have fought a lot. So I do think that if you're trying to go for that level, it makes sense to try to get as many fights as you can, as much experience as you can.
Mm-hmm. So let's pivot a little bit then. So you have a tremendous amount of fight experience. Now you're a coach. You still train. To me, you train like a competitive fighter still, but now you're also on the coaching side. You're sharing boxing with the world through Fight Camp, but you're also a producer on there as well. Like, how did you get in that role, and how did you find yourself training others and sharing your experience with others?
Well, how I very first started training and teaching other people was before Fight Camp. It was so that experience helped me land the job. But when I was in Australia, because I moved over there and I was fighting under the McKinnon brothers out of Bulldog Castle Hill, really, really well-known gym, kickboxing gym in Australia. And I would teach classes there, and I would like teach the kids classes. And funny story, I have to point this out because I'm a woman in a man's sport, and it's only now really changing and evolving where you're seeing more women really being influential in the fighting world. It's been within like the last like 5-6 years, really, because I mean, I think like the women were finally allowed into the UFC, not even like 10 years ago. It's like very
Remember
new.
Ronda Rousey?
Exactly. It's like super new.
Dana White, I think there's an interview clipped out there that says there'll never be women fighting in the UFC. And now it's like, talk about UFC, talk about even professional boxing, the Serrano-Taylor fight this last year. I covered it a little bit too. That was one of the fights of the year. Like, that's incredible.
What I mean. Women are actually very entertaining fights. I actually would argue that they are some of the most entertaining. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased. I just, real recognize real. You see good things and you're like, wow, that's like high skill. But I would teach over there, and my coach really, he's like a big burly Aussie guy. And he, really people only wanted to listen to him. And I was the first female to teach the general Muay Thai class at that gym because it was a husky gym. It was men. It was like, go hard, go home. And he had to be like, okay, everyone, Jess is going to teach class. And they were like, so I really had to like put my foot down in that class and be like, hey, I'm Jess. I'm not going to take it easy on you boys. If you want to spar me after class, you can meet me in the ring. Let's get it. And I literally built that class up from 5 people to 57.
Amazing.
And I have
love that.
photos of that. I have photos of that class. I had more people in my class than my coach. And I think that just goes to show that I just think it was my purpose to do what it is that I do and to teach. Yeah, I do think I'm a teacher, and to also share those experiences and obviously skill set, So I did that, moved to LA. I'm kind of.
Let me stop you really quick. Out of the 57 people you had in that class, were they all just doing it for the love of it, or were they fighters? Like, paint that picture a little for me.
It was a little bit of both. It was really the fighters class. Usually we would train afterwards. So this was like the general class. So there were some fighters that would train in that if they couldn't come to the one later. But it was predominantly men. And a lot of them actually, when I had left, some of them did go on to fight. I found out 2 or 3 of them. And it was of like all different like age groups. I mean, some of them were like 18-year-old guys, some of them were like 55-year-old men, but people who just really
So
loved the sport and wanted to learn.
different skill levels and different
Hmm.
different stages and experiences, and I wanted to point that out. I had a great conversation with AJ on here, talking about us as fighters and how we share it in a group setting, specifically a class setting. Like, it's extremely difficult to do, so I want to commend
Hmm.
you for that. Like, how
Thank
do you
you.
command a group of 57 people to learn a very difficult technique, a very specific technique, and have it be digestible, have it be relatable super easily? Like, how do you keep them engaged that whole time? That goes to show, like, you're a great coach. Like,
Thank
and
you.
that's how you found yourself doing it in a global scale. So it brought you
Hmm.
from teaching a big group classes in Australia. Now you moved to LA and eventually Orange County, to where you're filming for thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions now, right?
Yeah, and that's I think what's so great is right before I had found out about fight camp, the year prior, a lot of people were heavily impacted by the pandemic, and I was one of them as well. I was furloughed from my job. So this was the end of 2021. Is that right? No, I think oh my gosh, all the dates are like
2020.
the end of 2020. Yes, because I started with my job at Fight Camp in 2021. So I lost my job at the end of that year around the holidays, and I was just like, man, like, and I was producing at the time. So I come from a production background. I was an associate producer. I would build pitches and do creative concepts of, you know, different things that the executive producer would bring to me. And then I would show him those ideas and then we would build them together. I would do script writing. I would floor manage on set, all of those things. So I was really contemplating if that was something if that was an industry I wanted to stay in, or if I wanted to try something different. I didn't really know what was on the horizon. I did a lot of contracting at the start of 2021, and then I was talking with a friend, and they told me about Fight Camp. And they're like, there's like this like really cool boxing, like online boxing company. That's kind of what he had said. And I was like, perfect. And I hit up our mutual friend who worked there, and I was like, hey, if you need any boxing like talent or something for a commercial, like I'd love to do it. I'm just throwing myself out there. And I really, really recommend people to do that. You can only get no, like it's better to ask and receive no than to never ask and just not know, never find out if it was a possibility. So I was like, hey, I can be a boxing talent, let me know. And then he was like, hey, by the way, they're looking to hire a trainer soon, but it's full time. I was like, perfect. Because he didn't know I had lost my job. And then I was like, and you have to have fighting experience. I'm like, perfect. I have fighting experience. He's like, you have to have group training experience. Perfect. Everything kind of
Oh,
aligned.
stars aligned.
It
Yeah.
was everything aligned. And I think I applied when the application dropped around Easter, and then went through a very, very thorough process. These companies are very, very thorough in who they hire and who they bring on board, because it's a huge responsibility. And I went through two like Zoom interviews and then finally made it to the in-person audition, and it felt like reality TV. It was a 2-day just full-blown audition. We had to be able to tell our story to camera. We had to be engaging on camera. We had to teach a 4-round kickboxing burnout. So all of our workouts, we don't just teach stop. We teach and coach all the way through it, and we do
Hmm.
it like it's a lot of endurance, a lot of cardio. So we had to show that we had that, and that what my manager calls it Zazazu. We had to show that we had this thing about us that made us engaging, because not every great athlete is a good coach. So you can be
That's
really
true.
great at something, but you might not necessarily be able to articulate
Yeah.
it to somebody. So what's our coaching cues? How do we explain things? We had to teach
Can I stop you
tutorials.
right there really quick? I love when we
Yeah,
talk about this kind of stuff, because it's
yeah,
stuff that I like dabbled a lot with in New York, and it's a true skill, coaching, not just one-on-one, face-to-face, but in a group setting, in a digital setting, like, and you talk about your cueing and how you're supposed to cue vocally versus physically. And it's like, it's one thing to teach an audience how to box and to do the workout with them, which you are, but you have to do it with energy and cues that will relate to them. So it's not like you could throw punches super, super fast, because the audience may not grasp that. A beginner may not grasp that. So you need to understand how to cue your body and your vocals and all your combinations and your rounds to a broad audience. And it's a true skill. And I hope more fighters dabble into that and understand how to become a better coach in that sense, because it's more than that machismo. I have this experience. You listen to what I do. You go through the same things I do. Everybody's different. Like you said, we all chase things in our own eyes. So how do we make that relatable?
I want to commend you on this. You do a really, really excellent job of breaking things down. And I think that's kind of the approach you have to have, but also be able to articulate it. Like, how can you teach something in as few as words as possible, but still be able to drive home the same message? That's what you have to be able. And if you can teach children, I'm convinced that you can teach anybody, because you can't use all these like fancy words and turn your punch over. A kid doesn't know what turn your punch over means. You have to be very specific with how you articulate yourself. So I really commend you there's things that you have taught me, and I've been doing this for a while now, that I've literally never been taught in the way that you've taught me. Or like the things that for me to look for. And I'm just like mind blown when I leave our sessions, because I'm just like, how come I've never been explained that before? But that's a gift. Not everybody has that gift. And I do think though, the nature versus nurture, I do think that it's something that people can grow in and can build. So let's say maybe that's not a gift for you, communication or teaching. I do think that if that's the case, look at people who are really good at communicating or at teaching, take courses, like look at other coaches, do what you can to evolve in that space.
Yeah, study greats in different industries. For me, why I'm like that is I studied, a lot of fitness people and a lot of great trainers. And I understood, I try to understand what made them so great. And honestly, it's make it as simplified and logical as possible. And that's why why you commended me on that. And I'm so grateful and humble and thank you. But it's like, I try to just make it dummy proof. Like I try to make it make as much sense to someone with no experience as possible. And again, that relates extremely well to fighters too, because it helps them really understand the basics and dynamics of that. Just simplify it. Like, does this really make sense? And that's where I kind of take all my teaching.
I also think there's something, as you were talking, it actually, I think you explain the why. Not everyone explains the why. And I think that it's important to know the why, because then you're moving with purpose. You're striking with purpose. Everything's with a purpose. But if you don't know the why and someone's just telling you what to do, you're not going to retain that information, or it's not really going to click for you because you don't know why you're doing it. You're just, okay, they told me not to cross my legs, but why? You don't want to cross your legs because you don't want to lose balance. So I think
you get it. You really get that. And I love that you pointed that out. And I have this saying, it's like, that I teach to everyone in boxing at any level, whether they're a fighter like you or to a beginner, is like, when you understand why you need to do something, you will execute that move with so much more conviction. Like if you understand, like, I have to move my head properly or else this mitt or this glove is going to hit me in the face, you're going to do it that much better, and with that much more focus and intensity and passion behind it. And now you take something like that, as simplified as boxing, and you start pulling it into outside things in your life. Like, okay, well, why do I have to be present in front of my kids? Why do I have to be present in front of my spouse? Why should I give my full attention to my relationships and stuff like that? So when you understand why you have to do things, like, and you could hear it in my voice, the passion, the conviction really, really comes out.
I love it. And I also love how you make those parallels with life, because everything you do in life, there are, I think, like things that cross or intersect. And I agree. I mean, if you're going to do anything, do it with full intention, full passion, relationship, marriage, like taking care of your children, taking care of your health, fill in the blank, but the same with like what you said, like knowing the reason why you do things.
Well, that's a perfect. You just gave me a assist to a layup for the next question. Like, that's your brand. That's who you are. And if you look at your socials and the content that you put out, whether it's on Fight Camp or your Instagram or your other channels, it's like you see you and you're like, okay, she goes all in on this. That's like, how did you get into creating content and why'd you start doing it and building your audience that way?
This is a really cool story. So around that time, the pandemic hit in 2020, March, right? March 2020. And it was in that time where I was already kind of feeling, so this is before I lost my job, I'm already kind of feeling like at odds with my job, or like, is this what I want to do? Working in production is very long hours. You have to be fully committed. And I'm thinking long term, like, do I want to work 14-hour days, like on a set, or you're like, where's this going? And something that I've always done is training. That's never changed. I didn't add it onto my plate. I didn't like just start making content and doing things I didn't do. All I did was start documenting what I was doing. And I just sat down one day and I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to make a training Instagram. I'm just going to start documenting my training because people have always asked me, that was a common theme in my life. Ask me what I do for training, what I do to stay in shape. And they wanted to see it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start documenting this. And you should see my first videos. I'll send them to you because I think it's really funny to show them. I mean, I knew nothing. The first one is me like out at a track, like doing, because we were all in work from home. And I was like doing like a track workout and I added this like a really like cheesy kind of like circusy music to it. It's so funny. And then if you look at that compared to like what I do now, you'd be like, wait a minute, what? But what I wanted to achieve was just to show people authentically who I was and how I trained. And what I realized is that there was a huge audience that wanted to see that and be inspired by it. So I learned as I was going. I really didn't know what I was doing when I was walking into it. I never took any social media courses. I've never, been trained in marketing, or I don't know any of that. I just started documenting my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And then
there's not a lot of people that do it, like fighters and coaches and people with unique jobs that we have doing that. So we like I think it's great to share that. Sorry, I cut you off. Please keep going.
No, well, what I realized is, remember, I lost my job at the end of the year. So I was able to really like dedicate myself in 2021, especially like the start of the year. And I went into my job in September of 2021 with 10,000 people following my content. I mean, I started from the ground zero. And I was like, I don't care if one person follows me. I'm going to do this because I want to do this for me. I want to create things. Because it was a good way to produce things. I was a producer, get that creative
you found
outlet.
Fulfillment in it.
Yeah, it was a creative outlet for me. And then also just like show people how I train. And everything from there, it just completely changed. And then it really started turning my creative wheel. I was like, wow, there's like a huge market for this. People like this content. And this is like the future. Like people want to see this. They want to learn the ways that you train. And I did have quite a bit of experience. And then it started being fun. And then I would start like clipping things to the beat. And then it just turned into this really big thing. And then the first video of mine that was really, really successful, I think for me, just like, I was like, whoa, I'm like, really like the sky's the limit with doing this. And I think now sitting today, I have close to like 100,000 people that watch what I do, which is amazing. That's like such a huge platform, and I don't take it for granted. And it's amazing because
from all over the world too. You're connected
all over the world, literally all over the world. India, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Russia, like all over. And it's cool because the universal language in all of it is martial arts.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
to me, I love that because so many people are so inspired and passionate about boxing and kickboxing or
Hmm.
jujitsu.
Yeah, that the creator economy again, like it has blown up, especially since influencers were big on Instagram pre-COVID, but
Hmm.
when the pandemic hit, you saw a new wave in the evolution of it. Like I've seen somebody like I follow this one person. I think her handle's like Laura Jumps or something. She started jump roping during the pandemic, and her
Oh,
content
I've
is
seen
so
her.
sick. I
I've seen
never like
her.
want to get to that level of jump rope, but I love watching her content, and it just goes to show like the game has changed, the creator
Hmm.
economy. But again, we're helping shape that game because you and I have gone viral almost every time we've just documented our training and shared
Yep,
it with the world and posted, which is incredible. But I hope it encourages all the other fighters and coaches and people in our industry out there, like, yo, the game is up for grabs right now because there's not a lot of people doing it. Like
I
compare
agree.
all like the food review lifestyle vloggers out there, which are all amazing as well too. But when it comes to like boxing, martial arts, like there's few and there's some that I look up to and I'm like, man, I hope I get to their level as well. But there's not very many out there. The game, I mean, it's up for grabs right now. I hope to see many people get inspired and start creating content and documenting their journeys and shining their story out there, especially the fighters, the professional fighters. Because look,
Agree.
if the influencers and the YouTubers and the TikTokers can build an audience and put people in seats and
Yeah,
pursue professional fights, why can't you do what they're doing
I
and get
agree.
paid that way and get noticed that way versus hating on it? Like, yo, take what they're doing right, make it your own, and build a lifestyle from that.
I can, what's interesting is I can understand like the hesitancy of why certain active fighters wouldn't want to do that because
Hmm.
maybe they don't want people to know their game plan.
Hmm.
So I do think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword for some active fighters, but if you look at the marketing of Ryan Garcia, I mean, look at the marketing on his behalf from his social media. I mean,
Hmm.
I probably amazing deals. Like he's not struggling, because
I want to point something out too. I'm gonna pull up my. Um, Let me see if I can find him on YouTube really quick. But a UFC fighter, Sugar Sean O'Malley, he's active on his YouTube, and he has 500K plus subscribers. I'm sure he makes more monetizing his Google AdSense on YouTube than some of his actual fights. And I'm sure he gets paid well for his fights too, because he's an exciting fighter to watch. But I mean, he understands the content side of things. And you see
yeah,
him, again, not just mingling in the fight realm, but taking what all the other content creators out there in different categories and mingling with
hmm
them. You see him with the Nelk Boys on their podcast. You see him, doing vlogs. You see him going up to people with mics and asking them questions. Like he's versatile with it. So, the game there's you could do so much more and provide such a good living for yourself on top of fighting.
I agree. Like
That's
getting
where I
multiple
see it
streams
going.
of income makes you more of a threat. But I do want to say this. I need to point this out. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, how do I do this? How do I like build a brand or build my Instagram or get followers, do this or that or whatever? And I do give advice to people because I believe in small beginnings.
Hmm.
And I was that person at one point, and then I didn't have a lot of help, but I've learned a lot of things along the way, so I want to help people. But what people don't realize is that it is hard work.
It's hard.
I think people think it happens overnight. Like I started this 2 years ago, and I really didn't reap the benefits of it until the last 7 months, 6 months.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm talking like I was diligent. I would post like every day. And I'm not saying that people should just dedicate their whole life. You just have to learn different tactics. But you have to be willing if you want to do this, maybe like as a career or as a side hustle or whatever, or like really build a brand, you have to be willing to put in the hard work. And you understand that more than anyone. It's like 4 a.m. Are you willing to lose sleep, to wake up, to spend the time to do it?
It's 8 p.m. right now. We're filming this 8 p.m. I'll be up at 4:30 a.m. the following day editing this so I can get it out in time and create the pieces from this. Like, it is hard work. But something about us is like that MJ mentality, right? The competitiveness in us. Anything we do it to the best of our ability. Even if it's just creating content for our own fulfillment and not even monetizing off of it, we're still going to do it the best we can. And it takes work, and you don't want that to take away from your actual training as well. So there is that balance, and you have to get creative with it and figure out how to mix it in.
Or another thing is, get people around you, get a solid team around you that can help make it happen. So even if you can't dedicate all of your time, then you're going to have to learn how to build a team that can help you achieve the results that you want. So maybe that is an editor, or maybe, but you can do it on your own.
Yeah, for sure.
All the things, everything that, for the most part, that I post is predominantly edited by me, and I learned doing it. So you don't have to, like spend money and get a team, but if you don't have the time, it's good to get people around you that can help you achieve those things.
Oh, or you could be anal like me. Like, I have access to editors, but at the times I'm like, I want to do it. Like, it has to be done a specific certain way. And my font needs to be placed on this, and it's going to take too long for me to say it, tell somebody else to change. So I'm just going to do it myself. So there's that issue as well. But you know what? I love seeing, like, Flawless Gonzalez is another coach. I love following his content. And he posted something too, saying like he knows fighters who built social presence and audiences that are monetizing it well and providing a good living for themselves to help them in between their fights. So I'm excited to see more and more fighters, coaches, people in industry get creative, put their twist on it, and change that game, And
I do know some people are hesitant because they're like, well, everyone's doing it. Not really. Not really. As of recent, I did start doing a social media course because I want to learn, all in.
I love that.
And something she talked about was how, like, we haven't even, like, we've only dipped in the water of possibilities of what could happen with this sort of marketing. Because this is the new, let's be honest, this is the new marketing. This is where it's going. And with content creation and stuff, we've literally just barely touched it. So my encouragement to people is, don't be worried about what other people are doing. Don't be worried about what so-and-so is going to say. I don't consider myself an influencer. I consider myself an athlete, a coach, a content creator. I'm a creative. I'm not an influencer. Now, there's nothing wrong with being an influencer, but like, don't allow certain stigmas or what other people are going to think. They're not paying your bills. You have to do it because you know that what you bring to the table is of value, and it's something you're passionate about. So I think that it's just better just to use what's in your hand and just start. Don't worry about what people are going to say, because there was a lot of people that had their like say about me when I very first started documenting, when I had like not even 1,000 people looking at my content. And that could have discouraged me, but I just took it as a challenge. Just like David Goggins. He's a beast. Right. He took all the naysay, all the haters, all the whatever, and used it as fuel. And sometimes you have to do that.
He listens to it on repeat. He's crazy like that.
Did you read that book?
Yeah.
He does. He literally
so crazy.
He speaks it. I don't think, I'm not condoning this or saying people should do this. He would speak it onto his phone, and then he would listen to the audio while he would run. I mean, that's pretty like funny.
Like I said, greatness in our own eyes, right? Like, and I love Goggins too, but again, he's on his journey and is inspiring us to put it in our own style on things. So, I mean, I think we've shared so much good advice for boxers and coaches and people, again, in our industry to step into the content creating world. Is there anything else advice you want to share for others?
I think the big thing is, I think the fear of failure stops a lot of people from stepping into what their purpose probably could be. And I know people, I've read stories of people that literally went their entire life and they're like, wow, like, I just don't think I was willing to take a risk. And I just think that, and this is my mantra, I think that people should do whatever it is that they want to. It's going to require you to do it scared. There's a lot of things I've done in my life that have required, I wasn't 100% sure about it. I was like, I'm really scared in this moment. And just like when you're in a fight and you're looking at someone and you're fighting them and you're freaking scared out of your mind. I mean, I can only speak from my experiences. I'm just scared and I don't know what's going to happen. You just have to you have to do it anyways. And I think that if you can conquer that fear, that's what takes you to the next level. And that's the way I've always lived my life. That's the advice that I always give people. It's not easy. And I don't want to pretend like it is. Anytime great people do great things, it comes at a cost. It's not just easy. So in all, I would say if you are on the edge about something or you're uncertain about doing it and you're feeling like you're scared, my mantra, my saying is, just do it anyways, do it scared. That's my piece of advice.
Yeah. And if you're going to do it, you do it to the best of your ability. And again, Everyone has different goals on why they do things, but take that simple phrase, whatever you do it to the best of your ability. Take that concept and bring it in again into your social life. Like when I'm in front of my kids, when I'm giving them my time, I'm going to give them the best that I can right now, as much energy I could give, as much patience that I can give, or your friendships, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your husband, like, can you be present with them? Do it to the best of your ability. And again, no one's perfect. We will fall. We will make mistakes, but there's something about that gives me peace of mind, understanding that I gave it my very all, even if I've fallen short. I could live with that. But if I knew I could have gone a little bit more, then that's hard for me. I lose sleep at night.
It rules out the what
over the simplest things.
Yeah,
1,000,000%. And that's the boxing mindset right there. And going into the last question, obviously boxing, martial arts, fights has taught you so much, shaped you so much into who you are now. What's one lesson that it's taught you that you want to share with others?
Ooh, this is good. This is a good question. I've actually never gotten
It's a great combo.
Yeah, this is. I love this. I think the biggest thing is that fighting's taught me is that it kind of our conversation almost came full circle. You can do anything you put your mind to. My story started in a very unfortunate way, but has went down the road of a very positive experience because of choices that I made, but through fighting. And I never woke up or I never was in high school and thought, you know what, I'm going to be a fighter one day. It's something, there's that really good saying about how sometimes greatness is thrust upon you. And do you remember that? I think it's from Gladiator or something. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people are born with it. Some people choose it and some people have it thrust upon them. And I think that for me, it was a moment that it was like thrust upon me in my life. And I chose that avenue, not knowing I could do it, but I had small belief that I could do anything. And then from there, the rest of the stories kind of unfolded. So I just want to encourage other people, and obviously my story is through fighting, that you can do anything you put your mind to. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. Self-belief is so powerful, so powerful, just to silence all the people around you, no matter what it is. People, my entire life, people have tried to stop me from doing things or tell me I couldn't do it or make fun of me. I was bullied growing up or whatever. I had to have such laser focused vision that no matter what it is that I set out to do, that I was going to achieve it. And I think that that's kind of what set me to where I am today. And it all happened kind of like through fighting, because I learned how to fight after that situation when I started, like within like 6 months.
Well, I mean, yeah, and recap that, like the whole conversation went full circle. Recap that and paint this picture for the audience and everyone. You grew up playing sports. You know, you believe you can do anything you wanted to if you put your mind to it. Then you get caught up in this tough, abusive relationship, and it brought you to fighting. And you took that into 6 months later competing in a world-renowned boxing tournament and placing second in it, and then winning multiple fights after that, and then going into the coaching side of it and building up a class that was bigger than your own coaches at the time. And that took you into the digital space and impacting thousands, hundreds of thousands of people now. And look, that's greatness. And fuck it, if it's not greatness in others' eyes, it's greatness in your eyes.
Yes,
and it's like,
I agree.
You know, you accomplished that. And now you're taking it to another level now. And you know, it's going to be a big year for both of us on the content creating side and the fighting side and the training side and the coaching side on that. But I mean, wow, it went full circle. Great conversation, yo.
Full circle. I love it. That's when you know it was a perfect conversation, when it comes back around all the way.
Yo, and we'll have to have you come back on the show more and see where we're at, update the audience. Cause like I always tell everyone that comes on the show, like the first episode, that's like your intro to the community. And we build this community and we build this audience and you know, we share the stories and the lessons and the, you know, the highs and the lows and the trials and we share that in effort to motivate and inspire others and to show like, yes, we all have unique stories, but we're also alike in so many ways. So,
yeah, I agree.
Well, how do people? Oh, please go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. There's so much in between, for sure, that we can talk about at a different time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, how do people find you and stay connected with you until then?
The best way to stay connected with me will be on Instagram at Jess Evans Fit. That's kind of where I do all of my levels of communication. I was on a podcast recently, funny story just to close this, and I had said Facebook, and he just thought that was so weird that I said Facebook, because he's like we don't really use Facebook that much anymore. Yeah, we do a little bit, but do you use Facebook?
Yo, honestly, and here's another nugget for everyone trying to get in the content creating game. Make a Facebook page and start uploading reels on the reels that you're making, the TikToks that you're making, update it to your Facebook page, and you will get traction. Because I post like my second reel on there got like 5,000 views already. And you could,
wow.
So yeah,
that's
so tell your boy not to knock Facebook. Yo, for sure.
I'll let him know.
Do it all.
I do have a athletes page on Facebook, Jess Evans Fit, and TikTok, Jess Evans Fit. It's all the same because I wanted to make it seamless and easy so people can find me at that name on pretty much all those platforms.
Yo, and this, you know, hopefully I'm able to really share this, but you're gonna start going into long form and vlogging and creating episodes and content on YouTube. So I can't wait for you to start doing that, because that's a true art form and skill set there too. So
yes, so that's like TBD
keep an eye out for that, y'all,
of when that comes out. But yes, that should be coming out soon as well.
Yo, well, I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast. Jessica Evans, thank you for joining us. Maestre Mentality, episode 11.
Thank you.
First interview for 2023. I hope it inspires people out there to create greatness in their own eyes, in their own lanes, to, you know, understand why they do things. When you understand why you do something, you're going to operate with a little more passion and conviction. And anything you do it to the best of your ability. So we'll wrap it up at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.